Carl, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing pretty good.
Where do you live? What do you do?
I currently live where I grew up here in Harford County, Maryland, not too far from Pittsburgh. I went to grad school at CMU where I studied human computer interaction, which is just a fancy way of saying making computers easier to use and not only for super technical types, you know.
Well, I mean, it says a lot
So
about you
yeah,
already. Carnegie Mellon is where nerdy people go to do
yeah,
nerdy things. And it's
yeah,
a very prestigious school in Pittsburgh. And there's a whole section of Pittsburgh called Carnegie or Carnegie, as we have to say in Pittsburghese.
right.
Uh,
I, I
did you
guess
get to
these robber baron types did something good with their money, so I
yeah, they
appreciate
made
that.
some libraries too
Yeah.
along the way. So what did you do with the skills out of CMU?
Yeah. I actually graduated in the recession of 2008, 2009. And I thought, I can go, like live with my parents and email companies hoping to get a job in a year or two. Or I can just move to San Francisco and like network my way in. So that's what I did. I'd worked with Salesforce in my grad program. So they'd flown us out to San Francisco and I just
Mhm.
liked that vibe. I'd grown up on the East Coast and was ready for just to like Maryland's also a very small state. So it's like I felt like I'd be trapped here my old life if I didn't get away. So went to San Francisco through my tennis team. I got a job at eBay, who'd actually worked with one of my professors, and they put me on a great project. And so I ended up working at a few Silicon Valley companies and startups. It's like I've got all this great UX training. Who wants good ideas about how to help users? And they're like, it's not really on our quarterly agenda. And plus, I'm your boss. I should really design this, not you. So it's like a lot of the learning the real world skills, like personal skills and company politics and I think it's similar to many people's stories, like Daphne, who talked earlier about, her skills in architecture, but then, your job is end up doing things you don't care that much about. And all the like creative stuff is just thrown under the bed for later. So a lot of my journey has just been like finding a way to properly channel those creative powers. So I also wanted to thank Dave for his story. He used the term walkabout, and that's something I feel like I'd been personally looking for because I spent a lot of my 30s like leaving the tech world and going independent and just like working at a coffee shop and like interacting with real people again because I was tired of living behind a screen and like not meeting my customers. So it's like I went through that whole walkabout phase into like, who am I as a designer and what do I want to be? And so I'm currently a solo consultant and freelancer. I've got one steady client, so it's giving me like an income stream to invest in my future. And then I just sort of stumbled upon autonomy through Mark Passio and the VIP Summit. And then I was like, right thing at the right time. And then as I'm looking at it, it's like I could sort of just audit this course and like watch lectures and not doing anything. Or I realize it's like I have to invest myself and my energy to get what I need out of this course. Because I really like, your whole, you could say pitch, or it's like an anti-pitch. It's like, don't come here if you want us to do everything for you, if you're scared of making changes. And I realized like I'm at that stage where I'm ready to like break out of orbit and like go be my own solar system. So that's what I'm here for.
Good. All right. So this one client, how did you get the client?
Um, so I'm in an entrepreneur group. They talk about this concept of eat what you kill. It's like, you've got to hunt for your food. Whereas this client was like, eat some roadkill. Like some car hit like this huge whale, which is giving me
Yeah.
food for like a year, but I
Yeah.
didn't. So I got it through my uncle, who's like, in finance and all that. And he knew someone through Stanford in the Bay Area who's doing actually a construction management software. So I heard there's a few people in construction here. So I'm learning about that, but them and actually lots of companies need the sort of skills I learned, and they actually aren't well formally trained. So one of the things I want to do eventually is like, teach more, help. Like if you think of the word user experience, like every business involves user or customer experience, right? And even the sales process is a form
Hmm.
of user experience. It's like everything you do in life is like interacting with other people, but I got it through my uncle. But it wasn't just like any old job. It turned out I was the perfect fit for them, and I'm helping them grow. But it's so easy for me. This is why I didn't like 9 to 5. Like I can see what to do and just get it done. And then I don't want to sit at my cubicle 7 more hours, like not getting to go outside. And
I know it seems cruel and
yeah,
unusual, right? Okay,
and
so
that's like schooling, as you know.
it's okay that you got the lead from your uncle because you got started, and that's the important part, and it's a good fit for the client. So now I'm seeking to understand, what does that client look like, and what are other clients like? What are the
Right.
how do we find more? And then what
Yeah.
message do we send them to get you more leads? Because you've already done the hardest part.
Gotcha.
You
Thank
you
you.
already you got
Yeah.
one client. Like once you get one client, you can get other clients, and it might be same thing or it might be a little bit different. And then you got 3 or 4 different offers, and then you pick one eventually and say, we're just going to focus on this. But right now you're doing all the right things. And
Well,
the
thanks.
walkabout
And
phase probably helped you
yeah,
in your life to get
it did.
situated.
Right. Unlike some of my, colleagues in the industry, I became okay with surviving on like just the bare minimum, because nowadays with technology, you can get everything you need quite cheaply as long as your costs, if you have decent rent or all that. So it's like now I'm not wasting money on whatever lattes and sports cars and whatever, I'm like, that's not my standard of living. But to answer your question, what I like about this course being more freedom minded is I think I've come to realize it's about finding the right clients with the right ethics. And it tends to be more smaller businesses that aren't taking VC funding. They're actually, they have some mission behind them. And they, like I said, every company needs some amount of this type of work. And the engagement I want to work towards is like a set time up front, 4 to 8 weeks, where I'm helping them with their concept, doing some groundwork to get everything in the right direction. For example, design a version 2 of their product. And that's what I'm good at. And then after that, move into like a retainer where, hey, I can come in and as you're building it, make sure that, or this engine, because I actually have an engineering background too. So I think that helps a lot. I'm good with talking to their developers and like getting around technical
Yeah.
hurdles. But
All right.
after
So
I've
let me
done
ask
that,
this
please.
question real quick. If I had a software product 1.0, 2.0, you could
Yeah.
help me design a 3.0 that's better user interface friendly, right?
Right. And that would be, I would call that an incremental gain. What I can really offer is like more of like a 10x of like, what aren't you doing now for your users that your next product can do, which you've been constrained by your current barriers as to not being able to do before. Like taking that step back and looking at the lay of the land and saying, actually, we're going to chart a new course.
So I have a client in Sweden, and he has scheduling software for doctors, nurses, hospitals, first aid places, urgent care, these types of situations. I have a suspicion you could like look at something like that and help make substantial user interface and experience things that makes it easier for the people he's selling to use his software and get the value quicker, faster, easier, however it works out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing I notice, it's like my customers just aren't noticing what their users deal with because they're in their own world.
Yes.
They're in spreadsheets and they're in meetings,
Yeah.
and they just don't talk to customers enough, and they can't think like their customers. And today or yesterday, recently Leah was presenting about her skill set, and you said she had these intangible qualities of like she can see what to do and get it done. And that's sort of what I'm referring to here is like, I can go through people's software and say, here's where your users are probably falling off, and it can be such small changes, but they all add up. And to the users, it means a lot. And that's
Okay.
sort of what they lose track of.
All right, cool. So now the part is you're in a meeting like that. And before you do that, you're going to learn to ask some questions, collect some preliminary data so that when you do identify that spot and you show them how much is going on right there, you attach it back to the numbers they gave you. And you'll say something like that equates to $2 million a month you guys are bleeding out.
Yeah.
Now, thus far, you seem to act like you can afford not to have a tourniquet. But if we did this and this to address this use case scenario, we'd be able to like bridge that gap, and you'd be stronger positioned against your competitors, and people might even pay for that additional feature functionality above and beyond the subscription. There's a whole bunch of things that can happen, but it takes you being there to see that and know what to do or options to do to triage that situation.
Thank you. I really like the skill you're talking about is just quantifying the offer, right? Because a lot
Because
of
that's how you can
people,
get paid.
yeah.
Because otherwise it's
Oh, sure.
ephemeral and intangible and these sort
Well,
of
yeah.
things. So knowing how
Designers and
to,
probably lots of
yeah,
us, it's like we see the value to the people and we think that's enough, but it's like you need to quantify it. What's the value to the business?
because what you'll learn is if we don't learn to do this for ourselves and have that conversation, and it's an awkward conversation when you don't know how to have it, but once you know how to have it, it's like totally natural. If we don't do that, we constantly depend on them to have the same vision in their head from what we understand, and they never do because they've never seen or they don't have the skills and experience. There is a gap there, and we need to fill that gap with narrative and story that relates back to tangible reality that can be checked and scrutinized, and quality assurance, all this good stuff. So
Very
it's about
true.
that convection current, and most of us through schooling, we only had part of that convection current, and we can't make it all go around ourselves, and we wait for the other person to do it for us, and that leads to hunger and starvation. So knowing how to like close those loops and close those gaps with rhetorical skills, not in a way that's to compromise integrity,